Okay, so I went to go see the Matt Walsh movie today. The Am I Racist movie. It was great. It was so great. Um, Part of the reason that it was great is because you kind of start to see why the conservatives are pissed off at DEI, and I get it too. Like the Black Lives Matter organization and all the critiques that the conservatives are giving, excuse me, when they're like, these people are frauds and they're scammers. Basically, the movie just put that on blast, where it was like people charging $50,000, $25,000 to go give like diversity and inclusion seminars. Like, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, right? Like, those things aren't hitting the way that you think they're hitting. And I think that there are some people who are attending who have a real, like, how do you say, a real onus and a real want to like make change and just to be able to like hear other perspectives. But like typically I would say some of those books, like if you want to read Robin DiAngelo's book that's like White Fragility, some of the things like exploring larger concepts like microaggressions are real. And I think that like we can actually put this into just a real world example. I think what's happening right now with like Andrew Schultz, those comedians, black women on the internet, how everyone's kind of spieling their piece. If you kind of like look at this entire situation, that is a very good representation of the diversity and inclusion conversation. Some people have really valid points that actually make sense and they should be addressed. Other people sound like batshit crazy, right? Like all of that is existing at the exact same time, and we have to be honest about that. But here's another thing that I didn't realize happened. So first of all, like the whole podcast happened, right? And I will say, I will give like Andrew Schultz maybe a small pass, because I will say, like, guys getting together with other guys and talking about guy things in the same way that women getting together with other women and talking about women things, it's all important. But how can you say this? Sometimes when you're having your like jokes, all the funny stuff, it's not that funny, right? So like, let's say that the tables were turned. Let's just say, sorry, I feel like I have no makeup on at all, and I kind of want something. Okay, so yes, if you're not into lip gloss, I use Too Faced. It's great. You can kind of see it, like it's always washed out here. Anyway, where was I going? Let's say the tables were turned and that same group of guys were making jokes about Andrew Schultz's wife and making a whole bunch of jokes that were basically like stereotypes of Italian women, and not positive stereotypes, like really negative stereotypes. And they were all just like going in, and everybody was like, boom, it's like jabs, boo, boo, like everybody was giving like their racist jokes and everyone was laughing. Well, what I feel like would happen is actually like Andrew Schultz would have to go home to his wife. If she heard it, probably other people would hear it and they would have conversations with her. He would have uncles probably calling him, being like, that's not funny, like we don't talk about that. This is the whole thing about like respect, right? People are saying, I'm not gonna apologize for making jokes. I'm not gonna apologize for making jokes. And the problem that I have with this is like, everybody can dish it out, but they can't take it. I guarantee you let me just say it like this. As many jokes as Andrew Schultz had in his little like back pocket about black women, I have as many jokes about Italian women. But I'm not an overt racist, and I actually don't think that those things are funny. Why? Because I look at other Italian women, and first of all, I see them as women, and then I see them as humans. And degrading a population who's already marginalized is punching down. And I don't really think those things are fun. Now, if it was a conversation with, and I was talking to an Italian woman and I was like breaking down the particular stereotypes with her, she was a part of the conversation. She cracked a joke. I was like, asking follow up questions about it and she's laughing about it. Okay, if she's joking about herself, that's one thing. It's a whole different thing for a community who's already kind of like out and known to be like hateful toward a particular community to come out again and reinforce these like very negative stereotypes and tropes about that community and then laugh. And the part that is really like the kicker, and I feel like a lot of what Black women were saying is that like these men are members of this community. Why the fuck are they seriously laughing about this? It's them laughing at themselves. And I don't think that I don't know. I feel like to me, this was a really good example of Black men, not all, but a few Black men showing how they do not see themselves in some Black women. Like, in what world is it funny to joke about yourself? Like, if we were to talk about that, I think I have an image here, right? And if I were to just go in on this Black man's looks, how like, there's so many things I could say that would be like just fucking shitting on him, right? But at the same time, if I were to do that, it's kind of like I'm kind of like shitting on myself a little bit when like all the some of the things that he was saying is like, oh, I didn't see any baddies in Atlanta, basically saying he's not attracted to Atlanta women, which is kind of like Black American women, which is kind of like Black women. Atlanta's a huge place. Like, I feel like I could do a little Instagram search right now and probably pull up like 10 or 15 really attractive women from Atlanta who are in Atlanta right now, who were probably out and about when they were. And it's just like, to the object, if we're literally just talking about sheer attractiveness, right? Like, these men are lying. Because like, I don't feel like they would, if the person from Atlanta was out and is just on a screen in front of a bunch of straight men, even the men on those couch, I do not feel like 80% of them were gonna be like, yeah, she's so unattractive. Oh, she's so ugly. Like, they're not gonna say that because they're being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's this very strange thing that's happening where we actually don't have many or any examples of, let's say, the other way around, like Black women making a bunch of jokes about like Italian women, or Black men making a bunch of like, negative jokes about like Italian women, because a lot of the like stereotypes, at least in America, and really this kind of translates to a lot of other places too, the jokes are supposedly how like those women are the preference. To whom? I don't know. I'm not gonna look at any other race of people and think that they are more attractive than me. Now, I do think that there's a lot of clumping everyone together. Like, people seem to think all Black women are similar. We all look alike. We all have similarities. I just don't believe that. Look, like, look around, put some pictures side by side. Let's have a serious conversation. Like, I don't know. I'm personally just a believer that like there are extremely beautiful African Black women who are just, I would put myself in that category, okay? And it's just kind of like, if you don't believe it, you can get the fuck off my channel and go live in Delulu, wherever you're from. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, that's just how I feel. But at the same time, I'm not trying to, I don't know how to put it. Like, I just don't have the same hate that I feel like other races have for Black women. I don't have the same gas to like unpack shit. Like, I made those Rosalia videos, the Ice Spice videos, because like a lot of that shit was being like thrown in my face to like, if I have it my way, I can just like unfollow once, not stream the music, not go to the concert, and it's totally fine for me. It's a whole other thing when like a whole bunch of Black men are now making content about it. the like media and publications are trying to push her into like the algorithm to promote like black women. Like even Beyonce had like included her in a campaign for like some shit that she was trying to sell. Like, all right, well, so now I gotta unfollow Beyonce. I gotta like and not not buy Ivy Park. It was like a lot of action steps that I was having to take. Where it's just like shit. How can I be more um explicit about the fact that like I don't want to follow this woman or anyone who like is similar to her because I find it repulsive. That's just me. That's just like how I personally feel. You don't have to feel that way. Nobody has to agree. I'm sitting in a land all on my own, and I'm fine to die on this hill. Okay, I just am. I just am. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the go back to the movie. So, am I a racist? Here's something that was really interesting. Like I was listening to, I was told by Kenya's podcast the other day, and she said something that I just didn't agree with, and I kind of wanted to point it out here because I feel like it actually might help some people understand some things. Like people are clumping together terms like alt right, conservative, Christian, and then they're drawing a line. So they're putting all of these people, this is literally my right. So on the right, right? And like Donald Trump is over here, and then they're putting like left, liberal, DEI on the left. And I think that for they're putting also things like academia, they're putting college over here too. So there's this line, right? We have like alt right, conservative over here. We have like liberal, academic over here. DEI is also over here. So Matt Walsh, he makes his first movie, Am I a Woman? I appreciated the movie a lot. If you actually watched the movie, you saw he interviewed many tribes from Africa. Okay, so as an African person, a lot of this like resonated with me. There's a lot of like really ancient old tribal beliefs about, you know, what men and women are. I personally am not saying I don't have an issue with the transgender community. I just, to me, I feel like um, if you weren't born, how do I say this in a way that is actually encompassing what I'm trying to say? Like, I think that trans women are different than biological women. That's like I believe I would not clump them in the same way just because the reproductive rights, menstruating, okay, and having being able to give birth, having the responsibility of, you know, doing that, actually, like, you know, being a wife and a mother in a traditional conservative society is a real thing. It is a real position. It has meaning. And certain people are occupying that space. I'm not saying that there's not enough space for other people to also like live in society, like trans women or trans men or people who identify as they them. I definitely see their humanity. I'm simply saying that I also think that like traditional males and traditional females in society are real and have a place, a distinct place that does not encompass that group. That is what I'm saying. Okay, but let's go back for a second. So I actually would not consider someone like Matt Walsh a member of the alt-right. I think that people who are members of the alt-right are like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is like a white supremacist in the sense that like he simply believes that like the white race is superior. There are many aspects of racism that come within that specifically. There are also that guy, he's actually a part of Kanye West team, ironically. I will try to, um, oh, Matt, is it Nico Malkovich or something? Nico Mal, who's the guy like on Kanye West team? Milo Yiannopoulos is his name. Um, I actually don't know. It's very difficult to understand his position, but there was a time like 4 years ago. If you were in conservative spaces, you might have heard him speak, but he was basically like, he was so anti-left and anti-DEI, we could say that he kind of started to not necessarily promote, but kind of. He was basically like he wants to raise money to help white kids specifically get into STEM so that we can like stop all of the bullshit. But at the same time, he's like a gay man who has all black male partners. So then it was very hard to say like he is a white supremacist when his partner is black. All of that got really confusing, and then there's also a bunch of stuff where I'm not saying this because I'm not a member of the alt right, but a lot of people seem to have feelings about if like gay people can also be a part of like white supremacy when it's about conservatism, and so there's all of these major ideas, right? But one thing I think that a lot of people don't understand from both sides, like I heard Kenya basically clump Joe Rogan into the alt-right group. And I always hear a lot of people from the left clump Matt Walsh into the alt-right group. They think that all conservatives are alt-right. Alt-right and neo-Nazis, I think, are virtually the same things. But I think that some people get confused about how the left is actually also very much so a part of the alt-right. What I mean by that is like my first introduction into research, I grew up in Berkeley, okay, like I was actually working for researchers who were kind of focused on like epigenetics, eugenics, like it was a little bit like race theory, like trying to prove how certain races are like better than other races. And it's something I like heard about, but like I just wasn't that, I don't know, I wasn't that familiar with it. It didn't, a lot of the studies and a lot of the academia around biology as a field, as a scientific field, not a lot of it, but some of it. Some people in anthropology, cultural anthropology, there's a lot of like subsects, like genetics, right? People are trying to understand differences between racial groups. I don't think that that's an issue at all. Like, I don't have a problem per se with that. But the same philosophy that these like liberal leftist academics who are studying cultural anthropology and genetics are trying to prove like certain races are superior and other races are inferior, and the studies that are coming from the left are being used by alt-right members who are like, we are citing this paper that is saying virtually that white people are smarter, prettier, better, more accomplished, live better lives, they're living longer. These things are, and people are starting to clump Donald Trump into this or that. And then they're clumping like Matt Walsh into this or that, when what you're actually trying to talk about is like politics, right? Which is different than either of those ideas. We were talking about like academics over here and biology, and then we're talking about like white supremacy as an idea that the white race, an idea and a lifestyle promoting the idea that the white race is better than other races, right? So you have the alt-right, and then we have like the academic left biologists over here that are actually saying the same thing, but none of this had anything to do with policy yet, okay? Or even like ways to really live your life. That's where these ideas of like liberalism, democracy, and then conservatism, and maybe like states' rights versus separation of church and state, things like that. that has to do more with like politics, and everyone seems to be saying the same shit at the same time, and I kind of feel like Kenya was doing that, which is very strange. To think that Joe Rogan is an alt-right member is weird. Like that is extreme. I would call like Joe Rogan a moderate leftist. Like if this is the line, he's like on this side of the line. He's not even on the conservative side, I don't think. Like to me, he's giving leftist moderate. Not like there's also, you know, in the realm of like online people, there's like Destiny, who's like super left over here, but now he's also gotten a little bit more. There's like FD Signifier, right? There's like Destiny. These people are extremely like liberal. But there's some, if they're extremely liberal, they're also here, right? Because I feel like they're still starting to make sense in terms of like policy, in terms of like seeing morality. There's other people who seem to be like all the way over here, and I would clump these people in terms of like the developing world ethicists, right? Where they're basically trying, it's kind of like what Gigi Hadid is doing right now. Mona seems to be doing this. Even a lot of the like celebrities who are being really extreme, or even Sneeko right now is over there too. It's like they're using their religion or their cultural upbringing in some way to try to make a really big point about Gaza, as though it's the only place that has ever experienced war. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying what's going on there is not awful, because it is, but that's not the only place right now that is at war. And when you're kind of like compromising the safety and not thinking about the safety of the people in Israel, you know, like a lot of people are being harmed. There should be a solution, but it isn't really simple. And also, if you're in America or participating right now in the American economy, I do think you have to kind of care about like what's happening here. Why are people just going like one way or the other, and they're kind of like ignoring the other side? Like that's so strange to me. Like, what are you saying? Like you're hold on, I'm like really thirsty. So I have these like Waterloos. I got some watermelon Waterloos. Funny, right? Yeah. It's very strange. Anyway, so then I saw some other things in the movie that I think are interesting, like Matt Walsh dressing up in skinny jeans and putting on a fucking wig. And then everyone not recognizing that he's Matt Walsh, even people who are in the diversity and inclusion space. That is so strange. Like, he's like the most public-facing conservative besides Ben Shapiro that exists right now. Like, how could you not know who he is, even with a wig? Like, he looked like Matt Walsh with a bad wig. It didn't, like, I wasn't confused. It was just so funny, because he like, the part of the movie that's like hilariously funny is like that, no, people like they kind of put it together after. There was one when, so in the first time he puts on actually he doesn't even have the wig, he just has his regular like outfit or whatever, and he like goes into some healing circle workshop where like a woman is trying to describe like I don't know, she was trying to describe trauma or something to other white people, and to me, it was kind of giving like, I think there was something when there was like that woman Jane, and she had the brown-eyed, blue-eyed study, and it was kind of showing all these like downstream effects of like, you know, how even amongst a group of white people, they relate to brown-eyed people versus blue-eyed people, and the differences there. And it was a time when she did it where all the things that happened with Martin Luther King were big. And also, I think that there's a lot of reasons like that people understand on a very macro level that like Black people have it harder, and so they wouldn't want to like be Black if they could choose. If they could choose to be white, like they would choose whiteness over Blackness. But then they also say like racism doesn't exist, and it's like, well, those things obviously they don't coincide. It doesn't make sense. If you're basically saying, like, if I were to say the differences between a Camry and a Corolla, for instance, like, I think that those cars are like very fucking similar. They're literally made by the same manufacturer, Corolla, right? Like, actually, if I traded in my Corolla right now for a Camry, I wouldn't be like too much happy. Like, this would be a fine trade for me. If I kept my Corolla, I'd be just as happy. Like, it's actually not making a difference, because to me, those cars are like pretty equal. If that kind of makes sense. Or like, if I were to move into an apartment unit that was like right next door to like in the same building as the apartment that I have right now, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, my whole world has changed. It's like the same building. This is the same. I mean, I didn't even really move. I'm in the same fucking place. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's equality. I do think there's other parts where it is so necessary for more Black women to make content about things and just to exist in the real fucking world, so that we can actually have conversations about what's happening and what's not happening. Because a lot of people have perceptions about shit, and it's just not going down like that. Like, I can't even describe the number of people who just assume that I am like ghetto because I am Black. Like, they have no idea how I've lived my life or where I come from, but stereotypes of ghetto-ness or like urbanness are applied to me. Even if I haven't said anything, I haven't done anything, I don't know these people, I'm just standing there and they're like, you know, it's fucking weird. And like, it would almost be like if you knew someone was like a clown or something, and then you just look at them and you're like, oh, I know what clowns do, ha ha ha. You start laughing even though they didn't tell a joke. It's actually like the Joker, the movie, which we can make another video on that when it comes out, but. So to circle back, it's all very strange. It's fucking weird. I also think that Matt Walsh made a really good point with the movie, which is kind of about how diversity and inclusion is a bit of a scam. Why are people profiting off of this? Like, the sort of marginalization of microaggressions that many of us are experiencing are because we are actually living in the real world. But the bigger kind of like oomph and sort of kick in the face is that, I would say, if I'm being honest, like 80% of the Black community isn't actually living in the real world. Okay, I mean, like, they're not participating in the workforce. They don't have a college experience. They don't have some like mental health journey, and they don't know what a microaggression is, because like the things that like we have gone through, where we have these shared experiences, you gotta have some experience to pull from. They don't have that. They don't have it. And that also goes for a lot of like people of color from all around the fucking world. They're poor and they don't have these experiences. Like, I saw a girl who I follow, I think her name is Salim or something, and she's like 35, and she literally just moved into her own apartment. Like, she had an apartment or something when she was 21, and she recently moved into her own, like, she moved out of her parents' house into her own apartment, like, now. And it was just like, here's the thing about like tribalism, which I've also talked about on this channel. For a long time, people were calling women with apartments, they were calling us all sort of like Wiccans, oh, we're bitches, we're like whores, just because you have your own apartment. Just having your own apartment just means that something is wrong with you. Like, you are the problem because you have your own apartment. Because you have a job, you're the problem. Really? Now all of a sudden they kind of see, everyone started to see even the other cultures, because it's called like cultural meshing or like assimilation, right? You're starting to see how things work in America. You start to see that a natural progression in terms of like your natural growth is like moving out of your parents' house, which should be happening around fucking 18 years old. In this particular case, and I'm not trying to call this girl out, I'm just saying, because she's like, so many people in the Habesha community are following her, but she's having a progression that's happening virtually 15 years after it happened for normal people living in American society. And we're all supposed to be like, wow. And these are like cultural shifts that are happening for the rest of the community. Oh my God, now I have a story of someone who's like moved out. Well, fucking 3 months ago, you guys were calling every single woman who lived on her own whores, witches, all type of crazy shit, using all of your like religious like bullshit to try to make it seem like it was something that couldn't be. And one person from your community has now a video channel that you can point to and be like, oh, this is a part of regular society 15 years after it happened for everyone else. That is weird. And I think we need to start calling the weirdness out as it happens. There's another video that I will make that's like probably more succinct, but also more in-depth, compressed about the Black Brunch Club. But here's something I thought was interesting. I saw that Quincy went on the Angela Yee interview show today and gave an interview about his album. That's great, except Quincy is Diddy's son, and Diddy's on the front page of the New York Times right now for going to prison for like crimes that he's actually not. He's like going to jail. And also I think all of his children just lost their passports because of the like bond situation that Diddy did. He gave up all of his children's passports. So I don't know if Quincy was a part of that, but I don't think Quincy has a passport. The two twins, they don't have a passport anymore. The baby does. They all lost their passports because of Diddy's plea deal situation. It wasn't even a plea deal. He was trying to like stay out on bail, and a part of that was giving up his kids' passports. So I'll put a link to that in the description box, and you can read that on your own and share your feelings. But I thought that was very interesting. This is why there is no Black community. Like, are you joking? Like, if there were ever a time to give a PR statement or say something, it would be now. Like, you can't be a child of a fucking like serial like rapist and sex trafficker and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna put out an album now. It's all good. Like, ooh, it's like actually not all good for you right now. Like, it is just so not all good for you right now, especially if you're saying you live in society with the rest of us. Like, the rest of us have to be accountable for like all of our actions all the time. Why do you get a pass? Like, you don't get a pass. And though I think that there's just something really wrong with the Black community where we need to be a lot more accountable and really start to have like, these people have a lot of fucking privilege, and if that is not like the most, if like letting that family slide is so bad for the Black community, because all it is showing is that like no one can be trusted. This is like the biggest problem actually that I have with the Cassie Diddy situation is like, it wasn't just Cassie and Diddy, right? Like, all the shit that supposedly Diddy was into, everyone around him knew. Like, his mother probably knew, obviously Cassie knew, but like, isn't Mary J. Blige like a really close friend of Diddy? She knew. She's a woman, she's a Black woman. She was just like, fuck Cassie. Have you heard Mary J. Blige say anything about like, oh, I'm so sorry, Cassie, that this happened to you? Oh, this is awful. No, right? Why? Because she fucking probably knew the whole time and is fine with it. And that is creepy as fuck. That is not being a good community member. That like, he got away with that by having a whole bunch of people around him who are complicit. And this is where kind of the silence is violence sort of conversation comes in, because yes, there are millions of microaggressions that Black women are facing in the workforce that need to be addressed. And I feel like actually Black women are addressing them amongst themselves and figuring out ways to like deal with it within their workforces. But the DEI conversations aren't necessarily helping it, because there's already qualified people who are going to go into those positions anyway, who should be able to like advocate for themselves, just given how much advocacy is already taken for them to get to the spaces that they are now. But I will also say, I think there's a really big portion of like nepotism and affirmative action who have gotten people who are just given societal handouts and who actually haven't had to like work through not extreme oppression, but like work their way up the system like the normal people have. And so they actually don't see the struggles that many of us have. Like we can all get on and kind of talk about our struggles. They don't have these struggles though. They didn't come from where we came from. Nobody ever talks about what it's like to start in the middle. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that many of us start and end in the middle. And another generation will come and we will start and end in the middle. And as we start to romanticize living in the middle and having fun with it via these like YouTube platforms, podcasts, and all of the other, we actually become the mainstream. And maybe those of us with talent will rise to the top fucking finally. It's so funny. My cats don't eat cat food, so I like put out some of the canned cat food that all the cats seem to like, and they like sniffed it and walked away. I don't understand. They're not like normal cats, but whatever. Anyway, I hope you guys appreciated that. I'll have a lot of links in the like description to this video so that you can go explore some of these topics on your own. Because like I'm not the only one talking about this. Other people are talking about this, and I know that like I purposefully try to like remain a moderate unless there's something very extreme that pushes me to either side. And I do want to make a little caveat because I did see that Mona Leo and Callie produced a video today, which I believe is about abortion. If I ever do put out this project, it was a project that was called Abortion Barbie. I believe that abortion is the one hill Black women in this country should die on. Because I just honestly believe that there are hoteps, which are just like, how do you say it? These like fake pro-black men that will sacrifice Black women in order to continue the race in America, whatever that means. But it's a failing race, right? To me, I think you should want to participate in the eugenics of it all and create like superior Black people who are like more attractive, more intelligent, taller, better aesthetics, something. Give me some finesse, right? I don't want to look at like midgets or people who look like Gunna continue to like running around society. Like, I'm not affiliated with that, I'm sorry, but like that's not doing it for me. If you're creating more Hobbins, I'll be like, okay, I'll sign up for that. Create another, I wish I could have one like male, Morris Chestnuts. Make more of him. I'd be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, do that. But, you know, more NLE Choppas, like, give me the morning after pill right now. I will take the whole pack. Blech. Give it to me. Just give me the shot. The life, just cut out my fucking ovaries because me, like, die on that hill. Never. Like, oh.